2-year-old boy. His family fled Syria. Part of the family were in Canada. Others were living in Turkey, and the father decided they would make the very perilous short journey across the seas to one of the Greek islands. And of course, that boat capsized. The boy's body washed up on the shores of Turkey on a beach. It became the most famous image at a point when Europe's politicians were trying to work out what to do. Well, here's one thing I've realized from this discussion, which I think applies to. You mentioned tripwires. I mean, my own view is that there's a set of tripwires in our culture which you can identify by now the roughly half a dozen or so of the ones that are most harshly enforced. And I think immigration is definitely one of them. But it has the same problem that each of the others has. And the way I see it is it goes something like this. And it goes back to something I think that Brett said in the previous session, which is the difficulty of accepting the media and communications environment which we're now in. Let me give you one example of this. Most people believe in borders. Most people believe that very few people are actually open borders advocates, think that the whole planet should just be people wandering to wherever they want. They recognize that, for instance, the welfare state collapses if that happens, and they broadly like the welfare state and so on. So most people believe in borders, and yet at any point you can significantly shift public opinion on one case, for instance. You just need one YouTube video, one picture of what a border can mean, because they're not just inclusionary, of course, they're exclusionary. And one of the reasons I think this is such a hard discussion is because that's what we're all going through all the time. Every policy, as I say, immigration is just one of them, but every policy at any moment can be applied to a specific individual, and that specific individual held up in front of the entire world, and you say, defend that when it involves this individual.
You mean a crying girl being taken away from her family at the
I gave the example
US-Mexico border.
In my last book of there's a 2-year-old boy. His family fled Syria. Part of the family were in Canada. Others were living in Turkey, and the father decided they would make the very perilous short journey across the seas to one of the Greek islands. And of course, that boat capsized. The boy's body washed up on the shores of Turkey on a beach. It became the most famous image at a point when Europe's politicians were trying to work out what to do. And that one image of that one poor boy, Aylan Kurdi, I think very significantly altered the decisions made by the German Chancellor. And that's one extreme example, but you can see that happening all the time. You've just had it with the southern border in the US. Most Americans think there should be a border. Doesn't mean they necessarily think there should be a wall, but they think there should be a border. Because it's the Trump administration, some footage comes out of what that means. Some of it's terrible and shouldn't have happened. Some of it is what you would do if people are trying to illegally enter a country.
Well, but isn't the concern that that's not entirely the case, that you could have a border without the specific policy of family separation?
Let me put it this way, that I'm not specifically on the family separation thing, but let me put it this way, that everything that was happening then was also happening in the Obama administration. And
not with respect to family separation, it wasn't.
I said not, with the exception of family separation.
Children were held in cages under Obama.
And so it becomes about something else. So you use a photograph or an image, horrific as it is, and it significantly changes opinion. Now, I just think we're all living in this world on a whole set of issues. I could almost any subject of the tripwires you wanted to address, you could say, here is a person, who I'm going to broadcast you the video of that person, saying something completely different. Are you willing to hold that view in the face of this person? And this didn't used to be the case. I mean, even very recently, this was not how political discussion and moral discussion took place. And now almost everything takes place in that.
So you're saying we have too much information to be able to act prudently or wisely?
I think we don't know how to, something like this, we don't know how to defend an abstract idea when faced with the individual.